the latest correspondence between Brendan Robertson and S.
Okay.
On the LSV parking.
We put that under updates.
All right.
Is everyone okay with that?
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, I motion to approve the agenda as amended. Seconds. Number 2, adoption of the minutes. Has everyone had a chance to look at the minutes from June 28th?
I recommend they be adopted.
I second. Third, do we have any public comments other than our delegation? No. Number 4, delegations. From Wagsville Dog Camp, we have Parash Bazari. Is that?
Yes, Missouri, yeah.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you.
Okay.
First of all, thank you very much for taking time to listen to me. In the last 4 or 5 years, the weather, as we all know, has been getting hotter and hotter every summer and for a longer period of times. And I'm having a really hard time with my dogs when I'm bringing them home or taking them back home during the ferry times. One of the issues is that with my insurance, I'm not allowed to take the dogs out of my van. My insurance will not cover. And because these dogs, I don't know them, some of them, I'm just picking them up. They could be aggressive, that I cannot take them out of my car. Or they could be some of them are very skittish, that they try to run away. So I can have that risk on Horseshoe Bay side or Bone side and looking for a dog for hours and on. Because of those reasons, dogs have to stay in the car. And when they're in the car, they overheat very quickly. And I can idle my car to get the AC going because people get really upset that I'm idling. And especially on the Bone Horseshoe Bay side, I've been done that a few times. And not long ago, I just had to rush the dog to the vet because it was passing out on me. So I had to get out of the lineup, rush him back to the vet, just because of the overheating, because I was waiting for an hour and a half, 2 hours just on the Horseshoe Bay side. I know you guys are going to be dealing with the BC ferries, going to go back and forth, but that could take years to get answers from them. And their answer to me was Bone side, they have nothing to do with Bone side. That municipality has the power over the Bone. That's why I was hoping that at least on the Bone side, while we are waiting for the BC ferries for the Horseshoe Bay side, at least on the Bone side, we can have it assigned, just like a medical loading, and just to have a spot that we can have a assured loading for the safety of the dogs, And we usually go against the traffic. So the way I look at it, throughout the whole year, maybe there's 10, 15 times that I might have to use this spot. Most of the time, I am not affecting the BC ferries. But for the safety of the dogs, because they cannot sweat, they get really overheated very quick. I know that the BC ferries, they have assured loading for animals on their reserved runs, but they don't do that for Bone ferry. But if you are going on Nanaimo or Langdale, they do have that for that. So it's kind of like, okay, why Bone dogs are second-class dogs kind of thing, right? So it would be nice if you can get your support, and if we can get a dog ranch at Wagsville can get assured loading spot. And some people will say, personal, everybody has dogs, but that's their own dog. They know their own dog. Those dogs, they listen to themselves. So they can take them out for a walk, cool them off, bring them back to the car. Unfortunately, we can't. The dogs have to stay in the car. So, and if you have any questions, I can answer about this issue. Other than that, thank you very much for listening.
Right, Tim?
Thank you. You're saying the car, so what kind of car is it?
So I have a couple of different cargo van. I have a cargo van and I have a minivan as well.
Okay, so is there any opportunity for a separate battery-driven AC unit that could go in the van?
They are extremely expensive. I have looked into it. And for the minivan, there's not enough room. The minute that you have to bring the battery in and the unit in. Cargo van it could be, but it's quite expensive to those.
What, I've forgotten the name all of a sudden. I had looked up portable pet AC units as well. I was just trying to remember the name. What's it called?
Those ones, I looked the one that you were talking about, because I think Judy just sent me a copy of it.
Okay.
And you still have to hook it up to the car battery,
Yeah.
and then you're gonna have a dead battery all the time.
Zero Breeze one had a self-contained battery that lasted.
Yeah, about $3,500.
Okay.
Yeah.
$100. That was my one idea, and then the other, I have reached out to BC Ferries, and they were open to the idea of seeing if you could fit within their livestock policy, even without a reserved route. So they had a list of information. I'm not sure if that got passed along to you as well. They'd want to know, what sailings, what type of vehicle, and how many dogs, and then they were going to see if they could squeeze you into their existing policies. So I'll send you that list again, or the first time, if you didn't get it, and go ahead.
You sent it to me too, Karin at the Dog Ranch. It's admin@bowendogranch.com. Thank you.
Yeah, and I was talking with Tamara, who's the community relations person at BC Ferries. So they seemed open to discussing the idea, at least. There wasn't a hard no or anything like that in the first conversation. So I'm happy to continue that. Well, John, do you have a comment?
Yeah, briefly. I'm sympathetic to the issue here for sure. I mean, who wouldn't be? They're dogs, and we understand the concern. One concern I would have is that people that are less sympathetic would go, well, you're supporting one business over another that you won't give assured loading to, whatever your reason is not good enough. And I suspect we'll run into something like that. Not that that's a showstopper in any way, but it's something we need to consider. I guess the other thing, Mr. Pizzer, you said you think maybe 10 to 15 times over the year you might need to do this, and you indicated it was because of hot weather. So that leads me to believe it's basically kind of June, July, August, 10 to 15 times in a 2 to 3 month period, which is more than 10 to 15 times in a year. Like it's a lot more, it's closed up a lot more. And I guess in light of that, I'm curious would you be willing, and I don't know if this is doable, but would you be willing to consider like some criteria that says these are the conditions, like the outside temperature on Bowen is, like 26 degrees plus or something like that. So it's not just so that we know exactly when this might be necessary. Because I'm not saying you would do this, but certainly there'd be opportunity to take advantage of this, in December when you really don't need it. I'm not accusing you of anything. Please be clear on that. But I think if we were going to look at something like this, having some criteria, would you be open to that and helping us develop what those criteria might be?
I'm going to just speak for myself. Karin might have a different opinion on that. But for me, the main thing I'm looking for pretty much from April till September when it's hot. Christmas, like anytime after that, after September, weather is good. I'll sit in the car. It doesn't matter. Dogs are fine. I've been doing that for a while. Usually that's not the issue for me. For me, is the weather when it's hot. And especially with the way the ferries are running for the last year and a bit, all the time late and super busy and sitting up top for, like, especially the Horseshoe Bay time on the up top is crazy hot before the ticket booth because there's no shade whatsoever and you can sit there for 45 minutes. And on Bowen, it depends where you are. If you're above Miller Road, that's very sunny as well. So, but yes, for me, 4 months or so when it's hot, That's all I'm asking. Any other time, doesn't matter really for me, but for Karen, it could be a different.
No, I would agree with that, because dogs can take the cold much better than they can take the heat. And just the overloads and the fact that we are we're missing ferries and we're having to keep these dogs in our vehicles for up to 2 hours, plus the transportation of the dogs being picked up on whatever side, plus we've got to get them back to either of our businesses. The round trip for me is sometimes for these dogs is 3 to 4 hours.
Yeah.
So it's a long period of time for a dog to be, sitting around. And I would say the health and welfare of the dogs are paramount in this situation. So the criteria, I would consider April to September, absolutely. But we run our shuttles at different times of the day. And sometimes in the height of the day, I could be sitting in Horseshoe Bay with up to 15, 16 dogs. And I'm told to turn off my air conditioning. And I have fans in my bus and my cargo vans, but having a portable air conditioner will run down my battery. So then you're at risk of not starting. So I'm not really sure what else we can do to be assured to get these dogs to and from Bowen for their health and welfare, while BC Ferries continues to really fall short in what our expectations are of BC Ferries, which is an on-time performance, because of the overloads and the excessive amount of people that are coming to and from Bowen. It's becoming untenable sometimes for my business to run, because I do service, both Barack and I service Vancouver. The dogs come and go from Vancouver. So it's getting to the point where it's getting very dangerous. And we're now getting at risk of hurting these dogs. As he said, he had to rush a dog into the vet.
Because certain dogs, they have like issues that just like
You said her hand.
sorry. Yeah.
So the livestock policy that you got from BC Ferries, would that help us or help staff? The recommendation is that we recommend that council direct staff to draft a policy regarding assured ferry loading. And would that?
So I'm sure we have to talk about this after the delegation
Right. But would
in more
that
detail.
policy help?
That policy is strictly for larger numbers, but it does give them a framework to consider these things. One of the points Tamara made was that there's no blanket approval for livestock. They request specific sailings. So I want to be on this sailing at 8 a.m. with this many animals. Can I get assured loading for that sailing? And then they have to show up a certain amount of time before. There's a whole bunch of restrictions in place along with the policy. They can't just show up and claim assured loading. So there is some framework there that's helpful.
I don't have a problem with that, because I am very regular in my shuttle days. Monday and Thursday mornings, I'm out on the 8:35, I'm back on the 11:15. If it's a stat holiday, that Monday will move to a Tuesday.
That was going
across
to
the
be
board.
my next question is
Yeah.
how many trips and what are the times?
Those are my times.
So she goes twice
Yeah.
in the mornings.
Yeah,
I go 3 times in the evenings.
yeah,
So you're not gonna see us on the ferry lineup at the same time.
yeah.
We are going opposite times.
That
So
was-
that helps in one way, so.
So Dog Ranch is 8:35 Monday and Thursday mornings, unless there's a stat, then it moves by a day, obviously. And then I'm back on the 11:15 ferry, Monday and Thursday mornings. So for instance, Monday morning, a long weekend coming up, I wouldn't be running it Monday, I'd be running it Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
And then your
I
time.
go Tuesday, Thursdays, usually I try to take the 5:10 ferry, but sometimes I take 4 o'clock. It all depends how ferry is running. And Saturdays, I usually go in midday, like 11 or 12 o'clock ferry, and coming back with usually 2 o'clock, like 1:55 or 3:50.
What time do you come back Tuesday and Thursday?
Not till like 7. Coming back from this, usually that's not the issue for Horseshoe, because I'm on 7:50, and there's usually no lineups or whatever. Most of the time, 95% of the time, there's no issue. I'll get on. So, but it's only like this Thursday, it's gonna be nasty. It's a long weekend coming. right? So even 750 is gonna be probably full, so. So overall, there's gonna be only like, really not that many times that you're gonna affect the lineup, the way that I see it, you know?
Yeah, I'm sympathetic as well. The only thing that makes me nervous is there's been so many requests for priority and assured loading from businesses saying they can't operate, to, parents with kids in cars saying it's like impossible for them to sit up above. Like, there's just been all year, all these different really moving cases for our ferry service letting us down, and wading into the who gets priority makes me nervous personally, but that's just my own view right now. But thank you very much for coming. If there's no more questions.
I just think the livestock policy that is within BC Ferries makes the most sense because they've already drawn up the policy, don't you think, Stephanie? It just makes sense to go as a part of that and just extend it to Bowen if possible, because there's not a lot of other people coming at you with livestock,
Yeah, and I've kicked off that discussion already through, so I'm also on the ferry advisory committee.
Yeah.
So through that avenue, I've kicked off that discussion, and we'll connect those dots and see what happens there.
And thank you so much for listening to us, because it's becoming untenable sometimes, and I'm very concerned that we'll get back to a point where there's gonna be dogs that are gonna be suffering.
Thank you.
Because we can't remove them from the forest.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening.
Then we are on to other issues.
That's what was medically assured. That was deferred last meeting.
Yeah. Hand it over to you.
Okay. Lee and I had a little chat about it this morning to remind ourselves what this was about. And the next step that we want to take is to figure out who the person is in BC Ferries that, whether it's Tamara or whether it's somebody else that is a contact person in terms of if they're working on their policy, and if we can ask them some questions in terms of what the training is and who gets it, and whether or not there's the information is easily accessible. Because the kinds of things that are happening, it appears that the people at the booth and the people inside at the information counter and the people that are, it's hard enough trying to figure out how there is an assured loading for Bowen, but people that are on duty don't seem to know anything about it. So trying to figure out who the contact person is and figuring out what their existing policy is and how we can help, if we can, make it sort of more understandable for both our people and their staff. Even if it's, we get the TAP form, and if there's a quick and dirty summary on the back and just say, oh, well, here's your policy, right? So that we make it more readily accessible, or make sure that the supervisors have it, or some way of making it more easily understood.
So have we gone through the information they have available to see if we understand?
Yeah, I think, there's a couple things. The TAP form doesn't really work for information because it's provincial, right? The assured loading part works just fine on Bowen. It's on the other side that you can't necessarily, especially in the summer, get through the gauntlet down to through the ticket booth. And then it's not clear there's a place where they put those people and remember to find them when loading comes. So it's that it's the Horseshoe Bay side that we need a little clarification on.
So we did talk about it in the June 28th ferries meeting, and they claimed that they could not give us a dedicated spot, but their claim was that unlike the staging for high occupancy vehicles during the refit that was horribly rolled out, they claimed that their staff knew how to do this. And so they would put vehicles in a spot and remember to get them because it's the same way it's done for the other routes. So we think that doesn't work. Like it's failing currently.
Yes, and the stories that I'm getting are that the people that are on the highways crew don't have any idea, no assured loading of any kind for Bowen. And then the people in the ticket booth have no idea and don't know where to send people. And when they ask at the information booth for clarification, it's like they get told that there's no assured loading. So basically you're waiting on the highway and then you're waiting, you know, whatever the overload lineup is down below and all the rest of it. So if they do have a policy, then it definitely is not working.
And just thinking out loud, the best way, like we've asked them something, they've said something exists and it's not lining up with what people are seeing in reality. I'm wondering what the best way to break through that is, whether it's either produce a couple of anecdotes, if we have people who, you know, they talked to someone at this time on this day and it did not work. If I had a couple of those to go back to BC Ferries with, that might be helpful, because I don't really know how to nicely bump the conversation again without them just giving me the same answer.
Can we figure out a contact person?
Well, I always go through the communications people. So it's Tamara and Carrie, and they feed it into someone within their operations team. And they do not want us circumventing that path anymore.
So did you say that they don't have a place they can put?
They don't have a fixed dedicated location.
Why can't they put them with the ambulance and the motorcycles?
Yeah, they just claim that they don't. I mean, the ambulance doesn't technically have a fixed spot either, but the idea of the general instruction being go to, you know, the front of the lines in front of the white line or something like that makes sense to me. At least like knowing that that's where you should be makes sense. Tim?
I'm thinking about the ambulance too, and the ambulance gets through the ticket booth, so there's some system set up to get the ambulance through. And whenever I've seen the ambulance there, it's always in the same spot, in one of those left lanes right up at the front.
Yeah.
So what if we approached them and said, can we use the same system for medically assisted loading for Bowen as the ambulance uses?
Well, I think that that's a good suggestion. I think that works to bump the conversation along because it gives us a clear, like, we just want people on Bowen to know roughly where they're going to be if they have medically assured loading. We still have to get through the top two pinch points, which we think the training isn't working. But I can go back to Tamara with the ambulance thing, the ambulance area, and bring up the other points. And then at least I'm not saying the same thing again.
Yeah, I can't think of a way really to streamline getting them through. I mean, I think when you come and sometimes Bowen's even the only lane open, they're, you know, sales held and overloaded all the way across because they say you can use any ticket booth. It doesn't really help if we're the most available ticket booth anyway. So I don't know how they would facilitate that one, but at least if you get through, it would be nice if you knew you could get on the ferry.
And which ticket booth does the ambulance use? Because it has to have a place to go.
I don't know. I've never seen the ambulance go through the booth. I wonder if it doesn't even, I think it just goes actually where the lights, it comes in the exit.
Oh.
Which we won't be able to do.
Right.
Because that's where all the police cars and everything come in. They just do a U and go the wrong way down the offload lanes.
The last trust meeting when I was leaving Gambier, I gave Kate Louise Stanford a ride, and she's the trustee for Gambier and also the regional district rep for Sunshine Coast, and they're having the same problem and trying to get the same discussions with BC Ferries in terms of what happens with the Langdale boat. So.
Well, that's good to know.
I think it's a live issue. And it seems to me that her contact was Tamara as well, but I've lost the card, so I can't believe it.
So there's a FAC chairs meeting in late August. and I have nothing until now. That makes a good thing to talk about. But if that's a common issue, like the meeting is not supposed to be route specific, but if this is not a route specific issue, then it's a perfect
That
topic
helps.
for that forum. So I can,
Let me double check with Kate Louise then, or get her in touch with you.
yeah, that makes sense. Tim?
One last thing. Mayor Leonard has a meeting with the CEO of BC Ferries on Friday.
Okay.
I think one-on-one meeting, and I'm just wondering if, I mean, I don't think, well, I don't know. I think he is getting into some detail, and I think he's been given briefing notes. I don't know if they include this, so it might be worth just checking with Andrew or
Okay.
Liam.
Are you gonna do that?
I can do that, yeah.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. I can mention it to Liam.
Okay, then the other thing I wanted to talk about on this topic was just assured loading in general. Like BC Ferries basically says the province has specific things they think warrant loading priority. And BC Ferries doesn't. They don't want to entertain making this decision about residents getting priority loading, certain colored cars getting priority, like any discretionary priority loading, they defer to the province. So stepping into one issue, the Bowen side might be one thing, but if we start advocating for a specific change on the Horseshoe Bay side for a currently non-existent assured loading for something like dogs or anything else, we're stepping into a very kind of contentious conversation. I don't know where that would go. We might just get turned away very quickly, or we might be using up valuable attention on something that is going to get us in trouble later if all these other parties have valid reasons for wanting priority loading. So that makes me a little bit nervous, but.
So it was when your notes were brought to staff's attention about cleaning up what's happening with medically assured loading on this side and trying to get some clarity at the staff level, we realized that we don't actually have a policy associated with the procedures that we use for that process, which is not great practice. So staff is interested in creating a policy for the medically assured loading.
Okay.
Just as a internal, I don't know if that would be Drew, welcome, or who. So that process may be a good opportunity to fold in other ideas.
Well, I'm happy to put that recommendation forward. Does anyone else second that?
Yeah, probably the caring circle should be consulted too, because they've been pretty instrumental in orchestrating it and also working with people to navigate it. So they can tell you where the problem areas are. That'd be Colleen, yeah.
We need someone to reach out to Colleen, or would staff do that?
I'll make a note that would be included in this process.
I'm happy. I know Colleen well. I'd be happy to engage Caring Circle.
One more action for Tyler.
Oh, yeah.
Great, good.
Okay, do we need to vote on that though?
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
needs staff direction, yeah.
I'm in favor.
Yep.
Anyone against?
So the recommendation is that the committee recommend that council direct staff to draft a policy regarding assured ferry loading eligibility and procedures. I can clarify,
Medically?
no, on Bowen, like from Snug Cove, so we're not trying to,
It's still medically assured loading, I think.
Well, we
I
only
think
have
the idea was that when the medically assured loading policy is being written, then that may be the place where any other questions about dogs or that maybe narrowing it down would
So
You having made a decision already, or?
I'm kind of with Tyler there. I'm uncomfortable broadening it. I mean, there are just too many scenarios where people would like that priority. I don't think we should be wading into it.
I'm not uncomfortable with engaging the idea, but to make a decision on one that happened to came through the door at the right time without re-engaging with all these people, like we've had every company trying to operate a business on Bowen last summer was sending emails saying we can't run our business because we can't get goods across. And they had refrigeration trucks and deliveries that were refusing to come to Bowen anymore because it was so bad. So lots of businesses made strong cases for needing some sort of priority or reservation or assured loading.
John's got his hand
John,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks. Tyler, I'm just wondering, because you've obviously been dealing with BC Ferries for quite a while on these things. Are they just spitting the bid on, oh, well, we don't care what happens on board, we have no control over what goes on board, or is that actually the case? Or are they just trying to avoid any contentious issues?
I think it's a combination. Well, I don't know anything, but I feel that it's a bit of a combination of the two. It seems like on a staff level, they have specific instruction that they can't do anything or spend any money on property that's not BC Ferries.
Okay.
There's some other situation that was brought up at I think it was the last FAC meeting, where there is a ferry terminal where they've come up with some sort of legal agreement where they have basically given BC Ferries the rights to the road leading to the terminal, kind of making it their property. So if that was truly the issue, that they're not willing to do anything outside of their property, you could give them some sort of lease or rights to the lineup and make it their property for some period of time. And that would remove that barrier. Then would they be willing to do anything? I don't know, but that's one avenue that's kind of appeared, or one aspect of the discussion that's appeared in the last 2 years. The other thing is there's not an easy solution for them to pursue on Bowen either. There's not a lot available next to the ferry. And then the thing that really took the wind out of my sails a little bit during the last FAC meeting is when I was trying to get them to acknowledge how bad our traffic was. And they did acknowledge how bad it was and fully agreed with what we see as far as ferry overloads and waits, and then gave me a funny look and said, but you're not anywhere near the worst route. So it was just like what we perceive as being untenable and an absolute disaster seems to be widespread. So it feels like a panic on our end, but I don't know that we're getting the same level of severity on their side, because they see these issues everywhere. I mean, when they have parking fill up in Tawasin and just disasters there at their biggest terminal, I think that it's hard to make our case.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Can I share this recommendation in order to be clear on his concern about medically assured loading and possibly not closing a door on comfortable conversations? Okay. So this is a bit awkward.
I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's specifically medically assured loading. It already exists. We just need.
Well, that one is legal, yeah.
And then there's a possibility of, you haven't said no, you haven't like told council's asking for you to say something about these requests. Twice council's asked for BIMTAC's opinion.
Yeah.
So you either guys are voting to shut it down or you're voting to support it, or you're voting to say that this is what we will do to support this conversation.
I think the only path forward, whether you give assured loading or not, is some sort of policy with criteria. So.
Yeah, yes.
So I couldn't vote to give one company, like to sit here and listen to each company who wants it come in and make their case and then be the judge and jury sitting here. Like it'd have to be a policy. We can start with medically assured loading. And then if we see a door to other methods of assured loading, we can weave that in. Does that make sense?
So this just starts the conversation with respect to the policy.
Yeah.
And it only makes sense.
If the council agrees.
Yeah.
I mean, eventually, unless there's a bigger ferry, which I don't think is an option, we're gonna have to get, as we grow, and as the number of visitors grows, we're gonna have to be able to have a discussion about assured loading for residents, I think. And I mean, there are other places in the world where that happens on little islands, residents and visitors.
Well, there's also the sticky conversation of reservations on the Bowen route. But, okay, well, I'm good with this one.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I'll move it.
Second.
Second. Everyone in favor?
Aye.
Sounds like we're unanimous.
Yeah, I said it's okay. It's a big, difficult conversation,
Yeah.
but it's not really ours.
Well, I'm sure we'll get to
I think policy is different from bylaws. You can write a policy and you can amend the policy and
Yeah,
more
Yeah,
iterative.
just so that people don't assume then that there is a right to it. Because, it is difficult to tease out between the dogs and the mom taking her kids to appointments and the dad with two toddlers in the car and the senior. I mean, there are lots of people who can't wait. So I just don't want people to feel entitled because we put a word in there for something that we don't have.
Well, maybe that's a conversation.
Yeah.
And that would need to be articulated, because like Tyler said, it keeps bouncing off his desk.
But the framework
Bouncing off.
is what you're talking about, it's fine.
okay.
moving on.
Yep.
Okay. We have staff updates next. Is there a staff update?
I don't see Patrick here, and we don't want to put Drew on the spot, but maybe.
Thank you.
But if you, no, that's a no then?
Should we be updating Drew?
Oh, yeah, I could turn around. Any,
That'd be nice.
is there anything anyone's read the agenda? Now's your time to shine. I think there is an update. Oh, no, I didn't like anything.
You didn't like it, no.
The two referrals for applying for some grants. So
The which?
there were two referrals attached to the agenda about applying for grants.
Okay.
That would seem to me to be the only thing that Drew would have to figure out taking over from Natasha. There's some files in your office somewhere.
And multi-use path, I don't, yeah.
We had questions when we were chatting this morning in terms of the parameters and the requirements of the multi-use path. And if there is some way of getting around the tarmac and using some other hard surface that is not petroleum product and, is more absorbent. If there's any way around the restrictions, that would be ideal. There's other complaints in terms of the width and the engineering hassles and all the rest of it. But
You might have some memory of the width, isn't that's the industry standard, that 3?
I don't know why, I remember the conversation.
Yeah.
Like we had the conversation about the width and making it smaller, and the width was chosen to conform to a standard, and I don't remember if we had to conform to a standard to get the grants or if it was just staff preference to stick to a standard. But in order to have a 2-direction multi-use path, it had to be that wide.
That's what I understand.
It was required.
Yeah, I don't know what authority enforces that. Probably, I would think tied to funding if we listen to it.
So is this next section, the route established? The decision's been made where it's gonna go?
It has tentatively.
We've certainly discarded one that went down beside the creek.
Oh, you did, okay.
There's one that's up on the roadside that they now have to get some sort of engineering report on.
And is this the one also that goes through private property?
There's always private property, but there's a big right of way for the road as well.
I'm sorry that Patrick's not here. I will
No.
be giving him reminders for
It's okay.
sure.
Should we move on since
Okay.
I don't remember details on any of this?
Let's stop talking about things we don't know about. Other than-
6.2 is the Ferry Advisory Committee FAC update. The minutes from that last meeting are now officially posted. The FAC Chairs meeting is coming up, and again, that's specifically for items that are not route specific. The medically assured loading in Horseshoe Bay fits into that, but if there's anything else, like on-time performance and quality of service, all that will be the main focus of the 2 or 3 days. But if there's anything specific that you want me to press, let me know.
I'd be interested in what notices go to the commissioner. Because I understood that a lot of the on-time performance and the cancellations were not necessarily getting to her in terms of, I suppose you might consider it a loophole in terms of them having extra sailings on this route so that they could miss a few and still be within their license or something like that?
Yeah, so I pressed them at the last FAC meeting about we have more sailings than the province demands of BC Ferries on any given day. So they can miss like 4 single leg trips or something like that and still be meeting their service contract with BC Ferries. They have also been counting anywhere they have provided a water taxi as meeting their requirements. So we agreed in the last minute that that was ridiculous, and that they wouldn't be changing their formal reporting in this performance, 4-year performance term, because they didn't want to invalidate the rest of the data, but they would be putting footnotes on the Bowen Island data when sailings were missed and replaced with the water taxi only. So that was the conversation that was had. I think that's probably true for a number of routes that they operate above service contract, probably except, I'm not sure actually about Vancouver Island, I won't say anything. So this is another issue where as islanders, we're pressing BC Ferries for something, like when really the province's contract, the province is probably who we need to start talking to about a lot of these asks. BC Ferries is only required to meet the service contract. The service contract doesn't say anything about car capacity or weights or it's made for like a 1950s sleepy trip to your cottage or whatever. Like it's completely out of touch with the metrics that people are measuring it against. So I think I've said this a few times, but advocating to the province for a better service contract is probably the only way Bowen could see the types of improvements that people are asking for. Like BC Ferries it's against their entire directive to start doing things above and beyond the service contract that cost them money. So it's definitely somewhere we could, as a community, put some pressure. Maybe that's something I'll take up with the rest of the chairs.
Maybe that's something that needs to be done at the community level and a recommendation to council.
Yeah, maybe we should put some.
UBCM is coming up. I don't know that we've got time to set up anything with the Minister of Transportation, but that's something that we're supposed to be able to do.
Do you have all your meetings set up yet?
I have no idea.
No, we don't. I mean, we've
We've asked for a bunch and we'll be told which ones, there's.
You've not asked for transportation?
No.
is the Minister of Transportation the one responsible for BC Ferries?
Yeah.
Seems so. I don't know off the top of my head.
Should we toss one out there then? That the committee recommend that council direct staff to make an appointment or seek contact at UBCM with transportation in order to advocate for
Improvements to
We
the service
can.
contract.
service contract?
Yeah. Well, we can't do it for the UCBM meeting in September because council isn't meeting before that to direct staff to do anything.
You're meeting on the 11th, which is before the meeting, so.
Oh, is it? Yeah, okay, you're right.
And then
My
we-
apologies.
They were just setting up, trying to do a doodle poll to figure out a meeting before UBCM to strategize.
Yeah,
So, I think the requests have gone in, but I don't know if we've included.
Well, whether it happens at this meeting or not, if we want to see any change start to happen,
Yeah.
this should be a long-term, like, the recommendation could be that staff initiate the process of like advocating for changes to the BC Ferries service contract to address issues affecting the island.
Well, that's a larger issue too, because it's not just us, it's on the coast. So,
Yeah.
you know, when, what's his name was here, the federal minister, he was saying that he was thinking of getting a coastal gathering together with different levels of government.
Yeah.
So staff initiate the process of advocating for changes to the BC Ferry service contract with the province
Yeah.
to address issues that affect Bowen and other islands.
I mean, I would
Just say
just,
Bowen Island for
I
now.
would say to say Bowen.
Yeah, leave it to us.
Like you got the view. That's what we're talking about.
It will expand.
Okay.
Well, I'll double check with Liam if that's all it is.
okay, then my last ferries update.
Hold on. Gonna vote on that?
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'll move it. Do we need a second? All in favor?
All in favor?
Yep.
Thank you.
The last meeting, we heard from Bowen Transportation Society. I said I would draft a letter to go from the FAC. I was lazy for 3 weeks, but I did it this week, and I just got 75% of the FAC agreeing to send the letter. So I will finish that tomorrow, and that will go out from the FAC to BC Ferries to connect BTS to Tamara and those folks, and just recommend that they start a conversation as a follow-up to our FAC minutes. So I can pass that to BIMTAC once it's sent, like I can CC BIMTAC. But my suggestion was going to be that we write a similar letter to the Minister of Transportation from BIMTAC requesting this assistance from TransLink in the province to get the BTS service going. And in my head, this is different than advocating for a single business because it's a nonprofit organization. Does that ring true to others, or am I naive? So, and I don't think BTS minds, I didn't get the impression that they mind how the service comes to fruition, like they want the service. They didn't seem super set on how the service should exist, like whether it's through them. I can touch base with Kate if that wasn't the impression we all got, but if we are just recommending to staff to advocate, I'm getting my thoughts mixed up. So yeah, we could still do that, a follow-up letter to the Minister of Transportation or TransLink from the Transportation Society.
So I don't know if we would go straight from then maybe would go from us or from you through council to,
Sure.
yeah.
Do people like that idea? Okay, so we'll work to do that to make that recommendation at the next meeting.
Okay.
Okay,
Let's double check with BTS.
okay, I'll do that. Six point three, the emails and correspondence with Brendan Robertson and the low-speed vehicle rental proposal.
And now as I look at the agenda, I'm wondering if it should come under alternative bus transportation and the on-demand pilot report. But we can do it here, but I think it fits into that. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with the challenge that Brendan's been having. He's purchased a low-speed vehicle, which is basically a golf cart that will carry 4 people, has a roof over top. And it's licensed to go on our road system because the maximum speed on our road system is 40 kilometers an hour. And he would like to be able to park it in the marina, in the marina lot, and they're fine with that. But our bylaw doesn't, well, basically Brendan and Tess have been going back and forth because Tess basically.
Well, it's the business licensing inspector. It's the job description.
Right. So it's come down to a definition in the land use bylaw that Tess, our business license officer, says does not allow a low-speed vehicle, which is, it allows e-bikes and it allows a number of things that marinas have, but it doesn't specifically allow a low-speed vehicle. My point is that I think this is a direction that we on the Transportation Advisory Committee should be encouraging. Eventually, low-speed vehicles and on-demand shuttles through low-speed, this is meant to be a rental vehicle, but it's a start and it's a test to see how this will work on Bowen. And I think we should, I understand the business license officer is in a difficult position and she has to follow the rules, and she understands them. But I'm wondering what the thoughts around the table are. And then if we feel this is something we should be advising council on, I think we could ask to find a way, basically a way to allow this, because when the letter of the land use bylaw does not support something that we feel is important, then we should look to resolving that.
My feeling from the correspondence is a bit of confusion. In the way I have read the correspondence, Tess sought advice from municipalities council. Council gave her an opinion. She hasn't made any decisions. She's just sought legal opinion, received it, and she's now provided 3 options to go forward. which all seemed like faster options based on what we see happening than changing the zoning. But yet the proponent hasn't begun to engage any of those options. They're just seeking to have Tess or council, I guess, make some sort of decision outside of normal process to circumvent doing the three options that she suggested and make it happen sooner, I expect is the hope there. But I just don't get it. Why haven't we engaged any of the three options that were put forward? Like even the planning meeting to have a discussion about it hasn't happened. And we're just going back and forth. The test hasn't, or the business license officer hasn't made a decision. They've sought an opinion, received it, and they're acting on it. So pressuring them to change their mind doesn't seem like an effective approach. So you could either get into a legal battle and try and convince our lawyer to change their mind or something. Or I would expect we would go through the process and try and make it happen that way.
So I think the processes that she suggested are all time consuming and expensive for the proponent. And maybe I need to research it more. I think my question, I'm not asking anybody to change their mind or go against the policy. What I'm asking is, what is the most, if we support the idea, the concept, and what's the most expedient way for us to make the change?
So I think when we had our conversations, people had reservations about certain aspects of the proposal and not knowing if the proposed business had enough social benefit to the whole island to warrant some of the requests, like priority parking in the Cove, which is a communal asset. And so I think people wanted to see a case made that if the opponent was asking for certain things in the original letter to us, that some sort of greater benefit to the island would be demonstrated to consider along with that ask. So people, I thought, had reservations about that original letter, but now we're talking about like an administrative problem. If we're to advocate for this, it would be likely through a zoning change, I would think. We think that low-speed vehicles should be allowed to be rented in the marina. And then that would have to go through the whole process anyway. Unless a counselor has more insight onto a faster process, I don't know how we advocate for the issue in an expedited way without circumventing the way we normally do things.
There's some background to this too, and I don't know where to look it up in terms of it's either been before this committee or been before council. And in terms of, I've heard this before, and I've read something in terms of a legal opinion. So, without the background now, I'm not prepared to wade into it in terms of, yeah, it would be nice, and in theory or fundamentally, we need to transition into more electric vehicles, but there's all the little bits and pieces and the nuances. So the devil's in the details. So I'm not sure what's going on in terms of why there's frustration and why things aren't happening, but I'm not prepared to, get into a debate and think about it and come up with, some possible ideas or recommendations without getting back into some of that background. So, again, I think the transportation plan would certainly, if it doesn't, it should, get us off petrochemicals and into, other alternative vehicles. But again, I
think Brent had actually made quite a few connections to how he felt his business did fit the community plan.
Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
And the transportation.
And the transportation plan. So I think they did seem aligned.
I've seen all of that, right? So there's stuff out there that has been presented to us.
I think we saw it here.
Yes.
I think we saw, like, we haven't seen it in council.
Okay, so then, you know, we have to go back into it and start talking about it again, we need that background. We need that information before we have a full discussion.
But what avenue other than the processes that are laid out would be available that could be more, could be expedited?
So that's kind of my question, and I think that question should go to staff, and then staff recommend to council. You know, that's all the background, but.
But I feel like staff already gave a recommendation on his best path forward. Like Natasha put together a letter saying, do these things. Like there was no pushback. It was just do these things so we can start looking at your request. Like when I read that, I thought, okay, I'll pick the least onerous of these three and move ahead. And it sounds like everyone's fairly on board at that point. I just don't know why he hasn't gone that next step. It's like he's fighting against what seems to be a brick wall when there's three doors in front. I don't understand that part. And I'm not willing to pretend to be a lawyer or even a bylaw officer.
No, I think you've got it right. I think the reason, and I'm not sure of this, but I think the reason is because the three options are all long and complicated and expensive.
Can I read out the three options
Yeah.
provided? So one, moving to a location that is zoned for general services, so not the marina.
Yeah.
I thought he mentioned being at the golf course last
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, and I think he is there,
okay. The
but
sec-
that's not the best place for the vehicle to be if somebody's arriving in the cove.
second option was apply to amend the land use bylaw definition. Existing, so just amend a definition, which we did for Zoom,
Okay.
yeah, I think, of land-based marina facilities. Apply to amend the definition. And the third one is obtain a temporary use permit or a rezoning for the property, the marina property.
Okay, so the second, can you read the second again?
Apply to amend a definition in the land use bylaw. So the definition of land-based marina facilities
Okay.
is the source of.
Okay, that's the route that to me makes the most sense.
Maybe
Let-
Drew, sorry.
So let's drop this now and I'll speak with Brendan and just ask him why he's doesn't want to do that.
Okay.
Action item for Councillor Wake.
Second one.
Report back to next meeting on that discussion.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have a
thank you for bringing that up.
7.1, alternative bus transportation. Now, we have a letter from Kate's Hill resident, but it's not linked. Do you happen to have it handy? It's not linked on my copy.
Sorry. Okay.
That's
That
not
was
linked on mine either.
to Case Hill, right?
Yeah, I mean, it seems like an obvious, great thing to have.
Yeah.
I was hoping,
So,
like, to me, the issue is just that we, is
Letter's in our package.
it in the package?
It's on page 12.
it is a combination of URLs and just linking to the agenda, but yeah. Anyways, it's on the screen as well.
So is that a translate question? Who gets to decide where our bus goes?
Well, I can give a little bit of background.
Sure.
Sorry, Drew, I'm stepping in because you're in transition. I just, there were questions about the on-demand pilot. So I went to Drew's boss to ask, since Emma and Natasha, and where is this landed? And he just skimmed through the document and found at the very end of this on-demand pilot program report, it says next steps to continue looking into this. And that was in 2019, right before COVID. So he's suggesting that we advocate for, can you please continue looking into this, which would be on-demand routes through Kates Hill to Valhalla,
out to the golf course, sunset, all those things.
Yeah,
I mean, I was thinking even a more general recommendation to reevaluate our bus routes and demand levels. Like, we've been trying to get data for 2 years now. But that whole topic seems relevant again now that we're moving past COVID and some traffic volumes on the ferry are high and all those sorts of things. Improving transit as a whole seems important again, but the on-demand ask seems easier to actually move forward.
Well, yeah, in that report, on the 2019 trial, it was actually a TransLink or the same bus that did the on-demand route, right?
I mean, the same type of bus,
Yeah.
not the same physical bus.
No, same type of bus, and I think it came through TransLink the same way our other buses did. I don't know because I wasn't here then, but reading the report, you know, it was pretty successful. And I definitely think that's a great route to go. And that would probably make even more sense, for example, for Kate's Hill, because it's, you know, so close by.
Yeah.
It would, you know, but the notion of some kind of on-demand system where a driver gets 3 calls and goes out to those 3 places and brings those 3 people to wherever they're going, and then gets the next 3 calls.
Yeah.
I mean, it works well in cities. I don't know how it would work here, but that's what that trial was.
So do you remember how we fund? How our bus is funded? Is that just the municipality pay in?
We pay to TransLink, but it's not, and this is totally out of my area, but we definitely pay TransLink, and they provide the contract for the bus service. I don't know exactly how the funding works. I don't think we pay for specifically what we get.
So if that's the case, that we pay in as a regional partner and they provide a service, then I'd be in favor of asking staff to look into requesting expansion of our service through the addition of an on-demand shuttle. If there's like an obvious tie to funding, I might hesitate to request right now that we like initiate something that's immediately going to require funding. Does that make sense?
Yep.
Yeah, I don't think we can initiate anything that's going to require funding until we're starting to talk about the next budget here. Like it'd be pretty tough to go for money right now.
So how do we make a recommendation that ties that, and or do we need to do some research?
There's a proposed recommendation.
Can you ask council for something, and then if it's associated with funding, then council can decide that it's gonna wait for the next budget year?
Or could we make a recommendation to begin the conversation with TransLink on what it would take to initiate an on-demand system here? Because
Yeah,
you know, by the time we actually get, like, let's get the process going. And by the time they're deciding about the funding, we'll be into the next budget cycle.
yeah, have council direct staff to, oh, I'm gonna guess it's right here, there.
No, it's kind of, it was in the agenda, so let's start from here. Direct staff to,
Have direct staff to initiate the conversation with initiate, explore, sure.
our side.
Yeah, that's good.
A conversation with TransLink regarding on-demand service on Bowen Island.
Do we want to say expand the service, including
I'd say expand the service.
bus service or just service?
Transit of transit.
Transit service on Bowen Island, not to.
To
Including,
include. To include.
Yes, I like that, Counselor. To include,
On demand. What did we call it?
On-demand shuttle, I think is,
can we say then pursuant to the 2019
Yes.
report? Like, we've got to keep
Yeah,
that
that's
moved
good.
in.
yes,
Yes, on-demand shuttle
Yeah, that's good.
pursuant to the to the 2019 Transit final report. I'll find out what it's called properly offline, if that's okay.
Well, it's,
Dated,
I
whatever.
can tell.
Oh, can you do it?
Yeah, I've got it right here.
Please.
It's called the Transit on Demand Pilot Program 2019 Bowen Island Report.
Pilot program.
Yeah, and then subtitled 2019 Bowen Island Report.
On-demand pilot program, then transit on-demand pilot program.
Yeah.
19 Bowen Island report, comma. 19 Bowen Island report, thank you.
Yeah.
Dated.
That's it. 2019.
Ah,
yeah,
There's no further date.
okay. That, BIMTAC recommend that council to extend. And to include or just to include?
I think and. is-
And that this include.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah, that's good.
what is the this? Is the this the conversation?
This is the expansion.
And
Or just say and include.
And include, and to include rather than and, for me anyway.
I thought the two made it feel like that was the only ask.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fine. I'm not gonna worry about the wordsmithing too much. The points
Transit
there.
service on Bowen Island.
how do we feel about this? Good? Okay,
Yeah.
I'll move it.
Second. A lot of second.
In favor?
Okay.
Okay. Information items, no. Action items. It's page 13. I think we've covered all the ones in the.
I started putting them at the end now so that they're at the beginning sometimes.
Send Matthew McDonough search parameters.
That was done.
Alternative approaches to access data are unsuccessful. Recommend council write a letter requesting translate data.
I don't know.
We don't know, we're not there yet. I don't know that we're there yet. Matthew's working on it, so I think it was only as if Matthew failed, if we would need to.
Yeah, he said he was still waiting for permissions, that he had data.
Yeah, he got the data, I think, but he wanted permission, yeah.
Yeah, so I think we wait on that
Leave
one.
that.
And the first four are done. From the previous meeting, the passenger ferry letter of support, do we have any? It feels like there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Do we just leave this? Number two from previous, we've carried that conversation.
So we can get rid of that. The medically assured loading,
Yeah.
going on logistics, that's gone to council for staff direction.
Yeah.
And then,
Four, I forgot about.
bus ridership data.
I think number 3 kind of fits into number 5 above, doesn't it?
25, yeah.
And the Saratoga and Miracle Beach thing I totally forgot about.
Okay, sure, let's get rid of the number 3 at the bottom.
Okay.
Saratoga still on your mind?
Well, it wasn't, it is now.
Actually, before the next.
I think it'd be good before the next
Yeah.
one.
So can we go back to number 1 from the previous meeting? It was to draft a letter of support to who?
It was an open letter of support to someone providing a passenger ferry service to Bowen Island.
Yeah, it was to avoid just having like supporting a single business, but just broadly state that we'd like a passenger ferry.
So do we want to ask council, like staff to write that letter? I'm just wondering who's writing the letter?
Well, who we sent it to?
Well, the original ask was when Green Line visited Bowen,
Right.
they were looking to be able to demonstrate support to the province and the federal government. And we've pretty much missed the bus on, so they went with focusing on the Sunshine Coast. The Sunshine Coast, I believe, provided letters of support, and they went to the province and the federal government with that. And we were just left out. So we could just probably leave that one. Seems like we're about 10 months too late.
You know this fellow that is the proponent, right?
Yeah.
So ask him if he needs letters.
Okay.
Next time you see him, or, you know, if you get a chance.
Well, and
I think we're in
his
favor.
whole proposal is Bowen and Sunshine Coast. So like
Yeah.
we're kind of in there.
Yeah, we're just not in there as an ally.
Well, informally, we certainly are. I think, you know, the
We've missed that quote, but
problem
if you could-
was, and I don't know how the Sunshine Coast got around that problem of,
I think they ignored it.
Yeah.
And it got raised here. So I think that if he still is, you know, trying to get letters of support that we need, then we can figure out how to craft something that, you know, this fits right in, this would be so fabulous. And maybe we can get BTS to write it or to, you know, support it. So we missed that boat, you know, he's not there yet either, so.
Yeah.
So a lot of committees have just ongoing actions at the bottom of things we don't want to fall off the radar, but we don't need to feel shame if we don't do it right away.
I'll ask if he needs it. That's easy,
Yeah.
easy for me.
sounds good.
We'll say we got some energy going now and we might actually be able to do it.
We're actually meeting in person.
Yeah. And then I'm sure the other thing that might be a good information item for the next meeting is the current Metro package for CRC.
So I did send it to just,
Was that last email?
yeah, so it'll be in links. And for the agenda, I'll be more clear for the public and probably pull out documents for agenda points, but just in the meantime, everything's linked to that.
In our next meeting,
So we should make one. It's hard when there are people missing, but we can't not meet properly in September because of this important referral. So I'll probably have to poll because there are 3 people absent. But yeah, okay, I'll poll.
okay. I just want to prep members ahead of time. So we work to get the agenda going early, or maybe we just get an email making sure that everyone reads that package of information. It's like 200 pages or something.
Yeah, well, I'll pull out, so there'll be sections that I'll extract for members to
Okay.
highlight with your
Okay.
collaboration or approval. Yeah, I can do your agenda, that part of the agenda tomorrow, if that's helpful.
I just want to make sure we don't have 8 people showing up saying, oh, I didn't really read the thing. Like, there's too much to cram in the night before, like the hours
Yeah.
before the meeting.
And we'll do pop quizzes along the way.
Okay. Anything else?
I have a question about this, evaluating how much traffic we're actually getting on Bowen. And I know there was the thing in May when the ferry wasn't working and they did some numbers, and then I think council talked about maybe using our counter and then decided it was too expensive. And I just wonder, I mean, it seems unfortunate not to have some data when we've got such a highly charged topic on our agenda. And I just wonder if there's some more modern technology or something we can use to evaluate.
We could buy the same information that the Green Line people have been using to evaluate traffic trends, which is cell phone data. I think the company was called Streetlight. There's two companies that they had used to make some of the infographics they had here in January. Okay. One of the infographics they have is like a pulse map where you see the ferry comes in and then the pulse of traffic goes out along Bowen Island. That's generated by them purchasing anonymized cell phone data from cellular providers. And I believe it represents about 1/3 of the cell phones in the area and gives you like a point-to-point travel. So there are companies that have data for travel that don't rely on counters. He has some of that data. The municipality could engage Green Line to provide some of that data because I believe he owns it. And I believe he's offered this informally to me, that this stuff, this knowledge was there and could be.
I thought you'd have an answer like that. It would be interesting to follow up on. I feel uncomfortable not having data. Sorry, Judy?
The two software packages, I think they're used to do the same, they're two halves of the same thing. But the data came from one company and the visualization came from another company. But what you're really looking for is the data and someone who's processed it a little bit.
And what do we get from BC Ferries? Just raw numbers?
We get, unaudited raw numbers of pretty much anything you want to know. Like it's the number of vehicles, the number of overheight, the number of passengers, how many people are expected to be left behind, which I've now been informed actually includes an estimate of what's above the booth. So like it's all there and it's as good as we're going to get. So yeah, there's plenty of data from the BC Ferries side.
But as far as Cape Roger Curtis is concerned, I agree with, I mean, it would be so great if we just had a counter for how many people are going into the Cape. And I guess going down Tunstall, going down Whitesales as well. But most importantly, exiting Whitesales and into.
Well, what happened to our last, didn't we make a recommendation that staff amends their ask to extend the traffic collection through the summer? What happened?
It was too expensive, according to Andrew. I asked the other day.
Council doesn't always
Yeah.
take committee recommendations. So.
Well, no, but when Patrick gave a report on it, it was
Tens of thousands of dollars.
So was the original traffic counting was covered by a grant and this new ask would be new money?
That may be as well.
We want to talk to Green Line? See how much that would cost?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We recommend that council reach out to Green Line
We're
and
not even like for my software, we're not even on the agenda anymore. Drag and drop,
Yeah.
okay. Okay.
I mean, in the absence of any other data, I think that would be a good strategy. Let's see what we can get and if it's reasonable.
So it's the council,
direct staff to acquire or get an estimate from Green Line for traffic data.
To purchase, what do you do? Purchase, borrow, rent,
Rent.
Well, you'd engage him as a consultant.
access?
Let's just ask if we can get access to the data and
Get access.
then we'll figure out.
From Green Line to
how much or
access.
borrow it or
Share-
how much, whatever.
Sharing.
Well,
I think access is good. Yeah,
At that.
to access the data that was used for,
So if we can, you know, tap into that, that's the.
so he's shared that, like that table just with vehicles per minute on those roads. I believe he's given that to me, so I think we can use that,
Yeah.
but he has much more.
Yeah. So I think, you know, if we followed up in terms of the counters that were already out there, it turned out to be ridiculously expensive, we couldn't afford it. So then we dropped it, so this is an alternative, then we're picking it up again. So, let's just ask.
to ask council direct staff to get an estimate from Green Line to access the data that was used in their electric ferry proposal.
Or just inquire with Green Line as to what information they have regarding traffic volumes traveling to Cape Roger Curtis.
Okay, to inquire.
I do like the word access. Ask Green Line if we have access.
Does this actually need a resolution, or isn't it something we could kind of ad hoc, just phone them up and say, hey?
Well, my impression is that there will probably be some, like, he'll need some compensation.
Okay,
Like, it's not sitting there waiting for us to use for our purpose. It's a bunch of raw data. He's a mathematician degree person. He can process the data and give us some answers to some stuff.
okay, that's fine, just
But
ask.
yeah.
To inquire, sorry, I'll just screen share this.
This is further to that thought. Like, if we were handed a whole bunch of raw data, no one on staff is gonna start crunching it to make it usable for us.
Okay, so acquiring, getting an estimate.
Using their electric vehicle proposal as it would relate to traffic accessing Cape Roger Curtis?
Oh, John's got his hand up.
Yeah, a thought was just handed to me. It isn't my thought, but it's a good one. The problem with the cost for for counting, is that possibly because they were doing the whole island? And if we were just looking at traffic to the Cape, it might not be very costly at all?
Good question.
I don't remember.
Do you remember what meeting that was?
No, but we can figure that out when we get into this.
Okay, I can find, okay.
I'll move that.
I'll second. Should I abstain because I know the guy?
The financial benefit from it?
No,
There you go.
it's my disclosure.
Any discussion?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Council's gonna be happy to see these minutes. You guys.
You get a lot more done in person.
Ah,
Anything else?
no.
Motion to adjourn?
Seconded.
That was quick. You don't need a motion.
Okay, meeting adjourned.
Thank you.